Back in January, I said I was going to step away from making videos for a few months to finish my IoT platform. And apparently by a few months, I meant until August. But the app is up, and so time to make videos again. When we were last working on things, I did a lot with ESP32 and getting it a Wi-Fi connection and an MQTT connection. But let's say you've got all your ESP32s now or other devices connected to your broker, submitting data. That's fine. You've got data coming in. But how do you take that now and then create an IoT system? It's time to get in the other half of that. We've got to get into NodeJS and Raspberry Pis and start to build applications that talk and synthesize that data and create some interfaces that you can use to control your system. So this is the first in a series of building, deploying, and maintaining your IoT system. And it's really going to be about two parts. One is building the actual interfaces or applications. And the second is thinking about how do you deploy this in a way that the scale doesn't take you down? Meaning, when you start to get lots of devices and applications in the field, the pressure moves from trying to solve the technological problems to trying to maintain these systems in an orderly fashion. Let's, over a period of weeks here, get into all this stuff so that you can build maintainable systems for yourselves. What we're going to build and deploy is going to look something like this. We've got a thermostat controller. We can toggle the buttons up and down to change the thermostat's threshold. We can also manually turn the furnace on and off. If we raise the threshold way above the current temperature, the thermostat automatically turns it on. If we lower the temperature, the thermostat will eventually automatically turn it off. What we've got is a Raspberry Pi with a Mosquito and a bunch of ESP32s around the house with temperature sensors sending data constantly. Mosquito's in a Docker container, and so are these other applications. We've got one application that's just listening to all the different temperature data and averaging it and then republishing an average. The thermostat is listening to that average and deciding based on the threshold whether or not to turn the relay on or off. The interface here is serving a web page which does many things. It's listening to that average temperature and rendering it. It's listening to the relay itself and showing whether or not it's on or off. And lastly, it allows us to click some buttons to change the threshold inside the thermostat. We can also hit the toggle furnace button, which talks directly to the ESP32 connected to a relay. The point is, this is not about turning on a relay. This is about demonstrating how we can deploy a distributed system where multiple applications are talking together over MQTT to complete a job. So let's say you've got a bunch of ESP32s, and they've all got temperature sensors attached. And then there's a Mosquito broker, and all the devices are attached to that broker. Let's also say we've got another one that's listening on the broker, and it's controlling a relay. I say all this hypothetically because the stuff's sitting right next to me right now. So you may say, fine, we've got all this data coming in. How do we build an interface? Something where we can view our data and control our devices. I would suggest we can just initialize a Node.js app, bring in Express, and serve that web page. And so the interface is just regular HTML. When you look up HTML or watch YouTubes, you start to see all these different frameworks and complexity that you need. But this is really just appropriate for professional web development. You're welcome to use these tools, but you really don't need them just to get yourself an IoT dashboard. We can stick to the basics. I'm going to go to W3 Schools and just pull a basic HTML page and go from there. So once we've got this application going, you quickly realize it's not quite there because we don't have two-way communication. We can click buttons on our page and those will make requests back to the application, but the application can't talk directly to the app. And that's when we're going to bring in Socket.io. This gives us two-way communication. So anything the server has access to can be delivered to the front end live for you to view, such as temperature data. Lastly, we're going to add MQTT. And with that, our new application can then start talking to all these devices we've got attached to the broker. Now we've got end-to-end devices talking to our dashboard and our dashboard talking to our devices. You might say, wait a minute, can't I do this with Node-RED? And Node-RED certainly has a place here. This flow-based layout of the logic is a lot easier than trying to code things and make sure it works. We can't really look at these and say which one's better. They both serve different purposes. Let me just do a little side-by-side the way I view things. On the left is a stack I'm going to propose to you now, and on the right's Node-RED. If you're already a web developer, bringing in Socket.io and MQTT, that's going to be a very natural fit for the way you already work, and it's probably going to be a pretty simple learning curve. If you don't know JavaScript at all and don't want to, obviously you might just want to make your dashboard with Node-RED. If you've got a very defined project and you know that Node-RED can make it work, then absolutely go that route. There's no reason to try to tile this together if you can just put together some low-code associations and you've got what you need. If your goal is just to get a result and you don't care about how it works underneath, then you don't need to learn all these technologies. Node-RED can probably do a lot of things you need. But if you're on a learning path, because you're going to have to really work out these problems in the future, then we can still recommend you stay here on the left. And lastly, if for whatever you're doing, the visualizations are critical, like it needs to look exactly like you want it to look, obviously coding it yourself is going to give you a lot more control over the outcome than using Node-RED. But anyway, no shade on Node-RED. It is an excellent tool, but it's not what we're talking about here. So here's the system we're going to build. And so far, everything you see here on the right is just referring to the code. But if you're going to talk about doing IoT systems, it's hard to spend too much time on the code without talking about deployment. I would actually argue that when most people start working on IoT, they quit when it comes time to start maintaining what they've actually built. It's not just a matter of pushing some code to the cloud and then that updates a system that can be used by people. It's a lot more complicated than that. You're going to have physical locations with different devices, maybe some things in the cloud. For starters, you've got to be using Docker because you're going to have to package up whatever you build so that you can easily send it around and trust that it's going to work. I'm absolutely recommending that you get into bash scripting. You've got to automate the build of all these Docker containers. And also think about the over-the-air updates for your devices. You're going to need some way to call for mass updates for hardware that's all over the place. And you can't just type your way through all this all the time. Lastly, I'm going to talk about Ansible because things go wrong, things go down, things fail, and you've got to be able to reproduce whatever you built programmatically so that you know that if you have to rebuild it, you're going to get the same thing you had before. I view these technologies as landing on two different axes. On one end, you have code, and on the other, you have deployment, and the two work together to get you exponential results. Let's say you learn these 4 technologies. I'm going to say you've got a score of 4 right now. If you learn just 3 more related to deployment or DevOps, I'm saying you've got a skill level of 12 because you're going to be able to get that much more done with these new tools than if you just try to brute force your way through it, focusing on this left axis here. I would actually add Terraform to this list, but we're not going to get into it now. That's more about programmatically putting together your systems in the cloud. A lot of what we're going to focus on is just on a local Raspberry Pi on your network. So in addition to building what you see here, we're going to talk about how we think about deployment. It turns out that the Mosquito broker I referenced is on a Raspberry Pi. And on that Pi, we're going to make sure we've got Docker so that we can send our Docker container applications. And we're going to set up some bash scripts to automate the process of updating our software. And lastly, we're going to bring in Ansible to make sure this entire system can be recreated with a single command. This allows you to build several instances, give it to other people, recreate your system in other locations, etc. So all these technologies put together are going to allow us to maintain IoT systems on MQTT. Okay, enough of the overview stuff. Let's start coding. You need to have Node.js installed on your computer. If you've never worked with JavaScript or Node.js, I would say that the code we're going to be writing here is so light, I don't think it will matter. Inside our source folder, we do npm init-y. That creates a new project. And when we open up VS Code, you see we've got this package JSON, which records the particulars for our project. For instance, I'm going to come back out and go to the source folder and npm install express. And I'm going to touch app.js. And you see when we go into code that express is installed. And we now have a file called app.js that we can start programming in. I say again, you don't need to be a Node.js expert. We are going to write 3 lines of code here and have a web server going. Well, technically 5 because I'm adding this console log. But the point is, this is all we need to have a running web server. You type node app, and you see that the server is running. Of course, the server is not actually serving anything yet. We're going to come in and say, let's serve any files you can find in the public folder. And you can use any name you want. I just use the name public because I wanted to note that these are not files that require security. By the way, NodeMon, if you don't have that installed, please do that right now. If you use NodeMon instead, it automatically restarts your app every time you make a change. So all you have to do is refresh the browser to see the changes. So our app is running and we can try to pull down a file, but there's nothing actually to serve yet. We said we're going to serve everything out of public, but we haven't built that. So let's create a public folder. And inside of that, I'll put an index.html. And I wasn't kidding. We're actually going to go to W3 Schools, pull down their basic HTML, and start coding from there. This site's been around a long time. Some of the stuff might be dated, but I think it's a great resource for beginners. We paste in that code, and you see we've got, this is a heading, this is a paragraph. If we go ahead and spin up our server and load port 310, we get this is a heading, this is a paragraph. So we're now serving this file to the browser. I'm going to start to make some changes just to clean this up the way I like to. This is not meant to be a broad HTML or CSS reference. I just want to focus on the parts that are good for IoT. This meta tag right here, though, this is definitely important because it changes the way pages scale on iPhones. I'm going to give myself a custom title here and then create a link to a style sheet so we can bring in some CSS. It's there in the public folder, so it can be served to the page when the page calls for it. And I'm just going to make this background color change, and you see that worked. So our CSS is wired up. Now I'll just build out some of the scaffolding for our dashboard. I have 2 rows. Each has a label and a value. The top one will be showing us our temperature, and the bottom one is going to be showing us our status. This entire panel, I'm going to give its own CSS. Here I'm just building out what quite honestly was just generated by AI. I'm still one of those guys that can't center a div. So I start with something like this, and then I tweak it as I see fit. I'm putting some style around the overall body, and then of course the panel in which we're rendering our information. And then some styles for the actual rows that we're rendering. I like this space between. It gives us this nice layout. This is just a little color change. You probably can't even see it. I like to make those labels slightly less dark than black. So with this dashboard drafted, we can start to work with JavaScript. Inside of script tags, we can run code. Right now, I'll just do a console log. You can see that in the browser. If you hit F12 on Windows, I can't recall what Mac is, but you bring up the dev tools and we refresh this page and you see it says hello, because we ran that code inside the browser window. Another way to run JavaScript in HTML is to create a file and then use a script tag referring to that URL. We're also running this. Script.js is in the public folder. So when we reference it here and go to our browser and run, you see that we are also running this. So let me clear this out. Let's put in some JavaScript for our IoT functionality. You may recall from our data models here that we have info going into and out of the browser. Let me delete this script.js and create a new folder. And it's a little bit generic, but I'm going to call them incoming.js and outgoing.js just to kind of keep track of which channel we're working on. Now, if I put the script tags in our HTML and reference those files we just created, these scripts will be called when the browser page is loaded. Let's start with incoming. So this is information coming to the page. Check out this document.getElementById. You're going to use this all over the place if you're doing IoT. We've got one element ID'd as temp, and we've got one ID'd as status. So we can grab those elements in our page and then operate on them using JavaScript. So here's an example. Let's take this temp div and set its text content to works. I'm actually going to wrap this in a function that gives a 3-second delay, and let's watch what happens. We load the page, 1, 2, 3, works. You see, we can actually operate on the contents of our page using JavaScript. I want to focus on this text content. And when you look this stuff up and Google it, you find so many different ways to modify what's inside the page. But if you're just going to operate in the text, use that text content property. That's what we're going to be using throughout whenever we want to update our elements for incoming data. But what about outgoing? We need something to trigger an outgoing event. I'm going to write a button into our HTML, and notice I give it the ID toggle. We'll call this the toggle furnace button. Let me throw some styles on there. I can't live without my border radius. Let's refresh, and okay, we've got our button. You notice that when you hover over it or click, nothing happens. So I'm going to add a little bit more. Toggle colon hover. Toggle colon active. So now we can refresh and see our button triggering when we move around it. So look in the upper right here in DevTools, there's nothing showing when we click. So we're going to change that with JavaScript. In our outgoing tab, I'm going to do the same thing. Document.getElementById. And now we're going to use the toggle ID. As you recall, that's what we just set in the HTML. So we've got this element now, and we can set what's called an event listener. Whenever we click, it's going to call this function for us. So we refresh and click, and there you see the console log we just wrote. It's coming up in the DevTools. But you notice something strange. There is a lag. You click down, and it's not till you release the button that the click fires. So when you're doing this IoT stuff, you definitely want your system to be very responsive. So I need to take a little aside here to explain the normal progression. What people always do is they search, how do I get my page to respond when I click? And so you get the response, oh, just add an event listener for click. But that's not actually the one you want. So when you search further, it says, oh, you're right, that only works when you lift the mouse. What you actually want to use is mouse down. So you come over your code and say, fine, I'm going to go with the mouse down, and that's going to give me the nice responsiveness, and you reload. And if you're in DevTools, it's not working. There's still a lag. Now, do you see that we've got this circle here instead of a mouse? Whenever you're in DevTools, it gives you the mobile experience, which is touch, not mouse clicks. So if we close DevTools, you see we now have a mouse. Now this is going to give us an instant response, but how do we know? Because the DevTools are closed. Let's modify the code so we can confirm that this works. Like we did on the incoming page, I'm going to grab the status div and I'm going to update its text content whenever we click this button. Let's set the value to click whenever we click. You come back and refresh, and in fact, yes, as soon as you click the mouse, this thing fires. So that gets you the responsiveness you want. So we come over to DevTools, and it's still not working. And it's because mouse down is only for when you're using a mouse, and when you're in mobile mode, you've got to use touch start. So you think, fine, I will add two different functions, one for mouse, one for mobile. You refresh and come over, and you see you're getting both events because mouse down works in mobile, but it also fires the touch event. So long story short, you're just supposed to use pointer down. I just went through that whole explanation because most people search for things based on what they want to happen, meaning a click, and they go through this whole cycle of steps before they realize they actually want pointer down. So that's all. Let us wrap it up. If you just flip through the code, you see there's really not that much here. The key takeaways are quite simple. When you're setting up an IoT dashboard, you're going to want incoming and outgoing paths for the information. And your starting points for modifying divs or spans or paragraphs with incoming information is going to be text content. And your starting point for mouse clicks is going to be pointer down. So we did the HTML. Next week, we're going to work on MQTT. And then after that, Socket.io. That will get us this application. But beyond that, we've also got to talk about how we're going to deploy that application. This is all going to come later. It may seem like a lot, but it's all going to be in digestible pieces, just like today's video. If you did find this video helpful, please remember that liking and subscribing is a free way to support the kind of work that goes into making videos like this one. The Ohio IoT platform is live. It's an MQTT-based platform with tools designed to make your IoT development easier. Automatic graphs and device dashboards, plus no-code controls and rules, over-the-air updates for your remote devices, program and set up in loop like you already do. To learn more, visit ohioiot.com.